Joining us now to discuss the debt ceiling debate and a host of other political news is a special edition of our New York One Wise Guys. We've got former Mayor Ed Koch, as always, and two special guests, former Congresswoman Elizabeth Holtzman, former Lieutenant Governor Betsy McCaughey. Both Carl McCall and Al D'Amato are on vacation. Good to see all of you. Let's start with the debt debate. It looks, as of now, as if John Boehner can't necessarily even get his caucus behind him. And yet, the president has said, we've got to have a deal or we're going to go into default. What do you think, Doctor?
Well, unfortunately, the president's plan is only 4 words: balanced approach, shared sacrifice. We heard it again last night. I was very disappointed because although I believe in those concepts, in his case, they were just weasel words. Balanced approach, he wants tax hikes as well as spending cuts. But the fact is that he raised taxes $503 billion just 16 months ago when he enacted the Obama health law. $503 billion. We haven't felt the effects yet because most of these tax hikes don't go into effect until 2013 or 2014. But it's the law, and the money is as good as out of your pocket. In addition, when he says shared sacrifice, he points directly at seniors, and they've already given, because under that Obama health law passed 16 months ago, $575 billion was taken out of Medicare over the next decade and moved over to fund 2 new entitlements, a big expansion of Medicaid and new health plan subsidies for the middle class. It's kind of like robbing Peter to pay Paul, only it was robbing grandma to spread the wealth around. So I believe in those concepts, but in his case, I don't think that they were fairly presented.
Betsy is an old friend, but this is just hogwash. And let me tell you why.
I can tell this is going to be a slaughter.
The president is really a star in this matter, but he's lost regrettably. And the Republicans are engaging in scandalous behavior. What the president has said is what most people, commentators, and even the Bold Simpson Commission, that it should be a 3-to-1 exchange. 3 times the expense reductions, 1 time the revenue increases. And the Republicans don't want to do it. The Republicans are so outrageous. Warren Buffett, who is probably the 2nd largest guy in terms of wealth in this country, said, Warren Buffett, I pay 14.7% on my gross income subject to tax. I pay 35%. His secretary pays more than he does. But regrettably, because the Republican Party is no longer the Republican Party, it is controlled by the 89 people who were elected on the Tea Party, they're going to get their way because they don't care if the country goes into bankruptcy.
Of course everyone cares, but just a second.
No, wait a minute.
I haven't had a chance to
say anything yet. I haven't had a chance to say anything yet. First of all, let's sort this matter out. The debt ceiling is about how good is the word of the United States government. Is it in the toilet, or do we pay our bills? What is the credit? That's the only issue. Ed Koch and I were in the Congress. We had a vote for the debt increase many, many times. The government has made pledges, it's signed contracts, it's made other pledges, the Congress has appropriated money. What are we, worthless? Our word is worthless. The United States of America's word should be rock solid.
And that
period.
Is
Let me finish, Betsy. Let me finish, Betsy. What's happened is that the Republicans, for the first time that I can recall, have said, you know something? We're going to hold the United States hostage, and we're going to hold the President of the United States hostage, and we're going to try to enact our social agenda as part of dealing with the credit. And if you don't like it, tough, because we're ready to play chicken, and we're ready to drive the country to the edge of the cliff. And you want to know something? As a result of that, this may affect the credit of the United States for a long time. I was controller of New York City, so I know the difficulty of having to raise money when you have not paid your bills. But the question, I think, I agree with Ed. It's hogwash to be talking about taxes that are going to be paid in 2014. How are we going to deal with the problem right now? Right now, they should have a clean bill which says the debt, the United States is going to pay its debts, and its word is worth something. That's number one.
Just let me point out, nobody's worried about the United States paying its debt. On August 2nd, there will be plenty of money for the United States to pay its interest, to meet its Social Security obligations, to pay its military, and many other things. 75% of ordinary government spending will be right there, ready to be spent.
And what about the 25% that's left?
That's right, but it has nothing to do with paying the debt or the interest, because those are first priorities. This is the real issue. The Obama administration has increased spending so substantially that it threatens the future fiscal stability of this nation. And the S&P and the other rating agencies are threatening to lower the credit rating, not because the debt limit is about to be reached on August 2nd, but because they see no one in Washington who is willing to take responsibility for dramatically reducing spending.
The president has proposed a $4 trillion package, $3 trillion of which relates to expense reduction. The other trillion is to come from revenue enhancements, loopholes, having people pay their fair share of the tax bill. The Republicans said, no, we're not going to do any of that. And if you don't like it, we're just not going to pass anything. It happens, they have won. It's an outrage. Because
do you think that we're going to see a default next week?
What I believe is that there is great danger there will be no bill. Now, of course, ultimately, maybe I'm not blaming the speaker. I think he's a very decent man, but he's no longer the speaker in terms of running the House of Representatives. Every time he wants to make a deal, he goes back to his caucus, and they say, we'll throw you out.
Yep, which is the way the system's supposed to work.
Because the 2010 election was a referendum on government spending, and the people stated very clearly that the government is spending too much of our money.
Wait a minute.
Let me just explain for a moment. Let me just explain for a moment. When, at the final year of the Bush administration, the federal government spent 20% of GDP, already too much, up from 18% under President Clinton. But in the first year and a half of the Obama administration, it was pushed up to 25% of GDP. Add in state and local spending, and it reaches 42%.
All right. We heard enough. No, this is not. This is just garbage.
It is not garbage. It is not garbage. Listen to me.
No, you stop it. When President Bush took over, we had a balanced budget and a surplus. We had a
surplus. That he spent too much, but
President Bush took over, then he started 2 wars and a major
Let's discuss real fast.
Let me.
No, I'm not going to stop till I finish my sentence.
Dr. McCaughey, let me. Dr.
GDP.
McCaughey, I'm going to have to cut the mics if we don't have some order, because
Where
nobody
is
can hear anything.
now that I need him?
Wait a minute. Let me let Controller Holtzman speak for a minute, and then I've got a question for you.
Okay. Let's go back to big spending and Obama. The fact of the matter is, when Clinton left office, there was a surplus. That was frittered away by President Bush in 2 wars, plus huge tax cuts. Okay. The other issue here is that when I said before that what we have to do is it's the word of the United States because it's our credit and the debts have to be paid. And there is a risk that they won't be paid if this bill is not passed. The other issue is that this is no way to run a government. You do not decide on spending or cutting or raising revenues of $4 trillion in a back room with 6 or 7 or 8 people. I think David Gergen himself said that this is not the way to do it. You tell the Republicans, you tell the Democrats, you want to change Medicare? Go have hearings, go have a debate, go have a discussion, not in the back rooms. Have a proper discussion. You want to cut Medicaid? You want to cut other things? Not on this bill. In the normal course, what they've done is take the whole process of government and hold it hostage to this agenda, which is to cut. They want to cut Medicaid, they want to cut Medicare, they want to cut Social Security. This is not the way to do it, and it's an outrage for the country. I completely agree with Ed Koch.
I have a question for you, Dr. McCaughey. Something dire might happen next week if there's no bill. And as you said, certain things will get paid for. By one estimate, something like 800,000 federal employees might not get paid on time. Is it your understanding that that's the expressed will of the people, that if that should happen, then so be it?
Well, certainly looking at federal employees is one of the first places we should furlough or cut. The president has added 103,000 federal employees during his administration at the same time, as you know, that private sector employment has declined. It's time to stop this massive growth in federal government at the expense of the people. As I pointed out before, the government is now consuming 42% of everything we all produce going to work every day, 42% of the fruits of our labor. Some people would rather recover their sofa or take their kids out to dinner instead of seeing all the money go to government programs.
Fair enough. In our remaining couple of minutes, I want to ask Mayor Koch, you endorsed Bob Turner, a Republican, in the race to...
Should I tell you why? I want to send a message.
You've explained it before. You said you wanted to...
I want to send a message to both parties. I believe that President Obama has conveyed his hostility to Israel and willingness to throw it under the bus. And I want to send him a message that in the largest Jewish district and supporters of Israel who are Christian, that they repudiate that point of view by giving the nod to a Republican who is very supportive of Israel. But that would not be enough for me. What is important is to have the Republican candidate denounce the Republican leadership in Washington with respect to its plans on Medicare and Social Security to privatize them. He said he's against it. Or to have a limitation on Medicaid and no longer have it as a matter of right. So he and I are sending this message. Now, what I hope will come out of it is what came out of the message sent in Massachusetts when Scott Brown won the bluest seat for the Senate in the whole country, Ted Kennedy's seat in the bluest state, Massachusetts. If that happens, I believe the Democratic Party and President Obama will change on their positions that are important to me and to many others, and that the Republican leadership will change its position, which is to privatize Social Security and Medicare and eliminate Medicaid as a matter of right by making it into a block grant.
And we'll know by September 13th whether you're getting
right around the corner.
Yeah, and that's going to be the last word in this discussion tonight. Thank all of you for coming in. We're going to take a little break.